Hi, it's Athena Mariah with Hard Shell Slimy Snail Productions. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Brian, my new Shimpo Nidec Slab Roller. It took months and months to get here. I guess it got trapped in the Port of Los Angeles due to the huge 2020 pandemic cargo ship bottleneck blockage that happened there, a result of a huge influx of ships arriving at that harbor because of the huge pandemic restocking boom. But why did I name him Brian? Let me tell you a little story about a young man. His name's Brian Robson, and back in 1964, at the age of 19, he was working in Australia, but was wanting to return back to his home in Wales. Not having enough money for a return flight, he did the obvious thing. He put himself in a crate and mailed himself. But as you can imagine, things did not go as smoothly as he had planned. The easy 3-day journey to the UK took a major turn for the worse when he was loaded upside down onto the wrong plane. 5 days later, he arrived unconscious and highly dehydrated in Los Angeles, California. The story ends well with him surviving the journey and eventually finding his way home. But his journey really made me think of the journey of my slab roller. They both got delayed in Los Angeles. And I'm just really excited that he's finally here. There are several reasons that I decided to invest into a slab roller. The first being, I got a huge order a while back for a lot of tiles, and it was really difficult to make each tile uniform, just rolling them out by hand. I also tried making some larger projects, and it was, again, just really difficult to roll out a large slab with just a rolling pin. And so I decided a slab roller, that was something I really needed. So come on, let's make a project. My goal is to make 6 tiles to fit onto my kitchen table as little coasters. I'm using just baking parchment paper, and I traced my design on it. I'll also use a right angle ruler. I always just have this lightweight clear ruler handy. Also my rubber rib, a dull pencil, my knife tool, and then I always have a little bucket of water and a sponge, a towel. Now I'm using Laguna EM342 earthenware clay, which is a whiteware. I have about 5 to 6 pounds here. I didn't actually weigh it, but it's approximate. I'm hoping that that'll be enough clay to be wide enough and long enough for this project. I haven't actually made this project before, so this is gonna be a trial, hopefully not an error. So I guess we'll see. So let's bake it. First step will be wedging the clay. Once I've wedged it a couple times, I like to slam it down till it forms a nice square, just compressing the clay, essentially. And I love this slab roller. It makes for an excellent wedging table. It's really sturdy, no wobbling. Now that I've got 2 beautiful little cubes of clay, I'm actually gonna join them together. Some people could wedge a large amount of clay all in one ball, but I just don't have the strength, and I'm not trying to hurt myself. So I do it, and usually about 3.5 pounds of clay is like my maximum. So I'm gonna slam them together, and then I'm just gonna pound them down a little bit to compress them together. Now what our goal is to get our clay wide enough to match the size of my tiles. So I have my tile design. So I want my clay to be wide enough to go all the way, and with this excess as well. So I kind of just keep it handy. Obviously, I'm gonna need to pound it a lot more. So to do that, I'm just gonna pound it on the front side and the back side. You could even kind of throw it down at an angle, and that'll stretch the clay. And then I'll just take my, measure it. Now technically the lines are long enough, and then there's a little bit of excess around the edge. So this should be plenty as far as the width goes. So I think we're good with that. Now I'm gonna sandwich my clay in between two pieces of canvas, and then we're gonna put the sandwich in between our rollers. My slab roller came with these two canvas sheets. Put one side up over the slab roller, and then you could put your clay kind of in the middle of the canvas. This is about the middle. And then I'm gonna roll this over, so we just made a clay sandwich. Okay, and now we want to use these right here. What they do is there is a ruler right here on the inside where it shows the inches. It could go all the way up to 3 inches thick. So to start, you roll this wheel and I'm gonna start at 2 inches and pull the clay through until it hits about the beginning of the roller. Now this is like way high. I could probably, yeah, almost completely pull it through. So that's good. 2 inches should be good. And then you use this wheel, and I'm gonna pull it a little bit just to kind of get it going. And 2 inches was easy. So now I could actually move it down to about 1.5 inches. And I'm gonna do it on this side. Gonna even it out, and then I'm gonna pull the wheel and slide it through. And then I'm gonna move it down to about, yeah, probably about a little under an inch or a little over an inch. And try it again. And I'm just gonna keep moving down until I get to 1/2 inch. So you just kind of keep going back and forth. Once you start getting some resistance, like what I'm getting right now, is you might wanna pull it through one more time, and that just helps compress the clay better. Okay. Now I'm at like 3/4 of an inch. And I'm gonna pull it through this way one more time, just to compress it. I don't want it to get bumpy. It does get kind of bumpy if you don't go back and forth as it gets smaller. Okay, so now this is the final one, down to 1/2 inch. So I wanna make sure I'm getting really exact. Okay. We'll pull it through. Ooh, get close to the edge of the canvas. Uh-oh. It's actually gonna poke out a little bit. I'm gonna go through one more time. Because I went to the edge of my canvas, I might have to push it through. There we go. All right. And I'm gonna go through it just one more time, just to make sure it's nice and even. Alrighty, it's actually longer than my table, but there it is. So I'm gonna pull it sideways so it's not falling off the table. And then I have these drywall. I have drywall sheets. I bought a huge drywall plank, and then I cut it down to the sizes that I want that'll fit on my shelves. So we're gonna slide one of these underneath our project, underneath the canvas, and just kind of make sure it's on there. be good. And then I'm actually gonna remove this top part of the canvas and just set it aside. And now we're gonna use our rubber rib and compress it, because as you can see, it is a little bit lumpy. It just seems to come out that way. And then it also has the canvas design on it. So I'm gonna use my rib to smooth it out. I'm just gonna go over it quite a few times to make sure it's nice and smooth. So another thing I like to do is use this little like a tooth tool, and I have my little name stamp. Use the tooth tool to just make some wavy designs for the bottom of the tiles. I just wanna make sure I'm kind of putting the signature in about the area that I would want it to be, so about right there. And then I'll do another one about right here. So hopefully each tile will have a little signature on it. Nothing I do is ever really perfect, and that's okay. That's what makes it special, because it's handmade. I'm going to put this on top of it. Ooh, the flipping part. I'm gonna move this out and flip it. Okay, so I can put this away. I don't need this anymore. We can remove this canvas. We're done with this. And we're gonna come back to our rib tool and smooth out the top. Now I'm going to put my design on top of the clay. Just gonna use my ruler to mark my area. And I use a dull pencil to outline everything, because if the pencil's too sharp, it will pierce through the paper. And I did turn my fan on. Sorry if it's loud, but it's unbearably hot in here. Okay, so now I am going to go ahead and trace my design. And again, I just have to be really careful not to pierce through the paper. I usually like to start on one side and then work my way all the way to the right, or start to the left, work all the way to the right, just so I can remember kind of where I've traced. So I will just start tracing. And essentially the reason why I trace it is because it gives me a nice guide as to where I'm going to glaze. And it'll just be a little bit more exact instead of trying to completely freehand it. Just makes it more symmetrical. This is my first time using parchment paper as tracing paper, and I am noticing it's wrinkling pretty bad. I usually use printer paper because it stays pretty stiff, but my design was bigger than printing paper, so I went to paper that I had that was long enough, which was parchment paper. Yay, I'm done. Now I could use my straight edge tool and line it up and just make sure my corners are squared when I cut it. And now I could peel off the outside edges, and I'll just kind of gently pull it away from the tiles. Careful not to brush up the edges because it's still pretty wet, so they would bend. I'm gonna use this other piece of sheetrock and actually lay it on top of it, and I will let it dry with this sheetrock on top of it. Because it's really hot out here and there isn't really high humidity here, so everything dries really, really quickly. So this actually helps it dry a little bit more even and slower. So I'm gonna just set that on my shelf to dry. I'll probably leave it there till tomorrow, and then I'll come back and check it out. And then I could like smooth it out a little bit more and carve it if I need to carve it. And then I will add an underglaze to it while it is still leather hard. And that is how I use my slab roller. Thank you for joining me. I will show you my project when it's all done. Thank you for joining me in my journey. Make sure you subscribe. Also, check out my website, hardshellslimysnail.com, to see what goodies I have for sale. And if you happen to have $2 to spare, stop by my Patreon page and become a part of the Hard Shell Slimy Snail Club. You might win some free stuff. Links are all listed below.